Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be discussing my thoughts on the book Dune by Frank Herbert. I will start this off, I will preface this by saying that I did not enjoy my experience of reading Dune. So if Dune is your favourite book, this might not be the video for you. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it will help you, I don't know, see other people's opinions on it, but it might not be the review for you. But I hope to be able to discuss my thoughts in a not necessarily negative, like ranty way. I just want to discuss them in a calm, like critical way. So Dune. At first, if you are wanting to read Dune, I will try and keep this spoiler free. However, a lot of my critiques do fall into issues that I felt in the second half of the book, so it might be a little bit tricky for me to discuss them completely without spoilers. So I will try my best, and I will let you know if I do end up getting into spoilery territory. What I would like to say before getting into all of that is that every reader has a unique experience with a book. Like, there's no one way to read a book. We all individually read it, and we all bring our own experiences to that book. We all bring our own baggage, and I think maybe if I was reading this book in the 60s when it was published, I would probably have a very different experience to me reading it now. And potentially if I was male, I might have a very different experience to it being a female. And I feel like I might have brought my own experiences and my own baggage, which I can't like separate from myself because reviews are subjective and we're all individuals, but I feel like my experience has definitely shaped the way that I read Dune. First, I want to talk about my perceptions going into Dune and what I knew about it going in, because for me, I didn't find Dune to be as intimidating as it was made out to be. As just the first thing, going into Dune, I think I'd been scared of it, or scared off it, because so much of the talk is that Dune is intimidating, it's thematic, and it's really daunting to go into, and the writing, and so there I was going, okay, I really don't know very much about this book aside from that it's sci-fi, there's worms, and there's a sand planet, and it's intimidating. And I think that might be the perception for quite a few people who haven't read the book. I mean, it is a sci-fi, it is set on a sand planet, and there are giant worms. Like that is all true, but I think you don't necessarily have to say this book is thematic, because I feel like when you just say it's about the themes and you don't necessarily talk about the plot, then that can scare people off it. So I will just say that I think if you read sci-fi fantasy, because it reads quite like a fantasy, if you read fantasy regularly, I don't think you're going to have any troubles getting into Dune. Based on my experience of it, it starts off and you are following a family who are going to the planet of Arrakis, and they are going to be taking over the governorship of it from this other ruling family. This then prompts this other ruling family to try and plot the murder and downfall of this new family. And that's like the start of it, that you fall in this political intrigue with the changing over of the governorship of this planet, and this planet is highly sought after because of this spice that can only be found there. And it's a commodity that is wanted within the empire, and you follow both the family that are coming in with their son, mostly focused on the son Paul and the mother Jessica, and you follow also the other ruling family that are plotting the demise of this one, and you also see the native people of this land. So that is the crux of the story, or like the beginning of it. So it was fine. Like I really enjoyed that first half of the book and the political intrigue going on, and the learning about the planet and the arrival on the planet. Like I really liked that first half. I found the writing style really engaging. I really liked the writing style as a whole. I think it's a well-written book. So I mean, that sounded quite positive, but I do actually think it's a well-written book. I do quite like some of the themes that it explores in terms of like fear being the mind killer, and the topic of fear, the topic of like scarcity, because it is a desert planet that is, the water is extremely scarce. And so the topic of like being really scarce in terms of water, but also being rich in terms of its minerals, which the whole empire want. So I enjoyed looking at those different themes, and also the themes of like leadership, and you can't trust any of the leaders, really, like that sort of trust in power and the good of power. So I think there's a lot of actually really good things about Dune. And so this is why at first, when I first started reading it, I was like, I'm so surprised. I'm really enjoying this. I'm really liking where this is going. I'm liking the writing style. It's not as complicated as I thought it was going to be. I'm liking the plot. So yeah, I found it weirdly accessible, and I was really surprised by it. But I will say, do not read the blurb, particularly, I don't know what the blurbs are like on the other books, but particularly the blurb on this copy of Dune, which is the UK 50th anniversary edition, because it is not a blurb, it is a synopsis. So if you are interested, just don't read blurbs. Like, just don't, because they really are a synopsis for what happens like 400 pages into the book. Then it gets to the point where I think my baggage really started to affect my reading experience. And I think for a lot of people, they might be able to overlook these elements or pass them off as that the book is a product of its time, having been written in the 60s. However, for me, it completely, these elements which I will talk about completely disrupted my experience. So much so that it left me with such a bad taste in my mouth and made me feel completely repulsed by the book. Like, I'm not going to be keeping the book because it just left me feeling, I wanted to throw it away. At points I just had to close the book. I was like, ugh. So it had such a reaction from me that I went from really enjoying it, and these elements that I talked about that I really liked, and it just completely turned me off. It completely turned me off. If you are conscious of any spoilers, then these elements might be spoilery for you. So if you're really interested in the book, then maybe this might be it. If you do not mind the slight spoilers, then stay. And if you've read the book, then this could be a point where we could have a discussion on it. And I have, since finishing the book, I have read lots of articles. I have watched lots of videos on people with differing opinions. So I will link any resources that I have watched and read down below, because I wanted to see how my experience compares to other people's and seeing what other people think. I guess as a non-spoilery thing, I felt to me like the characters, and I think most of my issues are to do with characters and characterization. The characters were archetypes. They weren't real people, so there was no sort of connection to them. There wasn't. They were archetypes. They weren't fleshed out. They weren't made to feel real. I think I struggled with that. And then getting into the characterization and where I had issues. So the villain of the book, or one of the villains, is the Baron, who's from the other ruling family. And you just go, okay, I feel as though Frank Herbert went, what makes a villain? Well, a villain is gay and he's fat. And there we go, perfect, villain. Everyone can see that this is a villain now. And it rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, so you make your one character who is gay the villain, and he's also the one fat character. And it's not like he kept going on about how he's repulsively fat, repulsively gay. And it bothered me. And it really didn't sit very well with me that was how this person was characterized.
I just wanted to add on this that the villain is linked with being both gay and a pedophile, and there is a really gross history of gays being told that they're perversion and must have been sexually abused as children, and that they themselves are likely to molest children because of it. This kind of misinformation was rife in that era, and his book was contributing to this.
I did later find out that Frank's son came out as gay, and that, I mean, it is a family matter, so there isn't a lot of information on their relationship, but their relationship was strained. I don't believe, following his son coming out as gay, their communication stopped. So it did seem as though Frank was not very progressive in terms of his views about the LGBTQIA plus sphere. And I mean, I think maybe that probably is a product of his time, because we are much more forward thinking now in 2021 than they were in the 1960s. However, I think it still is a topic that should be addressed, that it is problematic in terms of the way that it represents people who are gay, and that his views wouldn't sit well in a modern audience. Following that, I didn't like the way that the women were represented and the females. So in some ways, especially in the first half, I felt like the women were very strong. You have this group of women called the Ben Gesserit, who are seemingly portrayed as being really strong women who stand up, and they infiltrate these royal houses, and that they have this power, and they are really controlled in themselves. Like they're very mentally strong. However, when you think about it, these women are so strong, except their whole purpose is to breed. Their whole purpose is breeding and to create this saviour, and to create more of these women. And I'm like, why have these really strong women and then put their whole purpose as breeding?
And to specify, this is breeding for the purpose of eugenics, not breeding because they want to.
And then following on from that, you have these scenes towards the later half of the book, and it did, to me, feel like a male sexual fantasy, because he's creating these women which are like, let's have an orgy. And these scenes where these women whose partner and fathers of their sons die, and they literally just go, oh, we've been together for 10 years, you're now dead. Oh, you over there, let's get together. Oh, I don't really care that this person who I have been in love with for years is now dead. Moving on. Right, let's get back on it. It just felt like he'd created this fantasy where men could just have women, and women were just available to them. And then on top of that, our main character, Paul, has this, he is very much an archetype of a chosen one. That he is the chosen one. And he has insta-love for this first girl that he ever meets. And I mean, when I say insta-love, I mean man, woman, love. No words, just that's it. So it really is like archetype chosen one, archetype insta-love. But the thing is, these characters are repeatedly described as being childlike. They're 15. They're 15 childlike. 15 childlike. And it's drilled into you that these characters are childlike. But when they say, let's have an orgy, and these two characters are like, let's make a baby. And I'm like, what? And so it creates this whole relationship, and the whole big relationship between these two characters, which are 15, and they're suddenly in this sexual relationship and having a child. And I was like, bleh. Bleh. And it's built up like that. This is the hero, and here's our main character, and it's just sort of normalizing it. And I'm like, but no. It really, when that scene happened, I closed the book, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to finish it. Through the rest of it, I was like, I kept going, but that scene, I was like, I don't know if I can finish this book, just because of how wrong it felt to me. Those are like the main, I guess, character critiques that I have that really turned me off of Dune, that really just completely destroyed all the enjoyment that I had for the book. And so it just made it a real struggle, because from that point on, I was just repulsed. And so all my enjoyment, it just it vanished. So anything that I liked about the writing style and the plot, it all just disappeared. And then going into the third part of the book, there is a 2-year time jump. So I just feel like any relationships, any form of time and what I probably would have needed to have understood some more of the dynamics between the characters, it's just skipped. It just felt lazy. I was like, well, why have we skipped this? Why have we skipped probably the most important section of the book to skip forward 2 years? One of the other big critiques I've had, and I think this is a common critique, is about the white saviour. In that Paul is this chosen one, is this white saviour that is coming along to save this indigenous people of this land who seem to be doing pretty fine by themselves. They don't need Paul, and him coming along to raise them up.
When looking at the ending of this book, where you have Paul and his Freeman army overthrowing the Emperor and setting themselves up as the new centre of power, with Paul as the white saviour as the figurehead, he then has this vision that it could all turn into a major jihad. And so it just begs the question, it just leaves these Freeman people, which are the Arab people, as having no agency, that this genocidal war is predetermined, and ultimately the Arabs are destined to kill everyone in a religious war. Like, is that really a good look?
I just don't know if this is the story that we should still be continuing to tell in 2021, when it doesn't seem to be perpetuating any of the ideals that we are trying to bring forward. So in the end, I just felt like I was hit by a big busload of white 60s mailman. It just makes me question whether I can read older sci-fi books, and whether older sci-fi books are just going to anger me. So though that is my experience with it, and I have tried to watch and listen to other people's reviews and try and understand. And the thing is, I can understand why people really like the book. I can understand, because for so much of the book I was really enjoying it. However, these elements that I have detailed, they killed that love. They killed that enjoyment. It went from being a really solid 4-star book to a 2-star book because of how problematic it was. And for me, I cannot brush that off as being a product of its time, because other books in the 60s, I've read some Ursula K. Le Guin, Octavia E. Butler was a bit later, but like other writers at that time were more progressive, were more inclusive. The 60s was the time of the civil rights movement, so it's not as though these ideas weren't around. There were other writers that were more progressive than him. And so I just don't know whether we really want to be supporting and putting up as the best sci-fi book of all time as being this one. Granted that I can see how it has definitely influenced the genre as a whole, and I'm not saying that this book should not be read, but I think it should be read with a critical lens, and that we cannot say that there are not faults. There definitely are faults, which I don't think should be accepted today in the modern society. There we go. If you have stuck to the end, then thank you so much for watching. Let me know your opinions on Dune, and let me know what you think of it. Please stay nice in the comments. I have been very nervous about filming this video because I have heard about the Dune fandom, and I have been anxious about voicing my critiques of the book and angering the fandom. So please stay nice. We have to remember that this is a book. It is not a life and death situation. It is a book, and that we're all entitled to our opinions, whether you agree with me or you do not. I am very happy for anyone that absolutely loves this book. I am really happy that this book brings you joy. Unfortunately, it didn't for me, but hopefully we can have hopefully any comments or discussion is friendly. That's all I would want. So thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in my future videos. Bye!